Good evening. I'll call to order our special called city council meeting of May 1st, 2023 at 6 p.m. Let the records reflect that all members of council are present with the exception of Councilman Reynolds, who has a conflict and will not be joining us tonight. Our first order of business will be our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I believe Mr. Allgood.
You so choose, please bow with me. So, Heavenly Father, we come together to conduct the city's business. We ask that you continue to look over us, continue to enlighten and guide us in and out of this room, that we may make the decisions for this city. We pray for the safety of our citizens. We pray for our city officials and all the good works that they do. We ask that you continue to guide us so that we all know that we are loved in this community, that we pray for the ending of senseless violence. In your name we pray. Amen. You may stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Allgood. Also, welcome to our council chambers this evening. Also with us is our various department heads and our city attorney, Mr. Hughes, and various members of the audience. So we certainly appreciate you guys being here. Anyone on Zoom? We thank you for tuning in also. The only item before us tonight is under new business. It is a business license appeal. I will recognize our city attorney, Mr. Hughes.
All right, good evening. It's a pleasure to present this appeal hearing to you this evening. This is a little different than what you're used to procedurally, so I would like to start off with just some general instruction about how this is going to proceed, and then we'll get into the substantive part of the appeal. First of all, I'd like to introduce Bo Brogdon. Mr. Brogdon's here. He is representing Keller Williams in the appeal. And this appeal is a business license appeal that is before you pursuant to SC Code 6-1-410. And I've discussed preliminarily the procedure that will follow with Mr. Brogdon, and he has agreed with how we're going to proceed. Both sides in this case have a right to call witnesses. Both sides have a right to cross-examine witnesses. The city intends to call Mr. Deerhog, our business and development director, to testify briefly. He'll be subject to cross-examination by Mr. Brogdon. Mr. Brogdon may have a witness or two that he wants to call. After they're finished testifying on direct examination, I'd have a right to cross-examine them. After I finish with Mr. Deerhog's testimony, I will get into the argument for the city as to why the city believes the appeal should be denied. At that point, Mr. Brogdon will turn to him. He'll have the opportunity to call any witnesses he wants to call. He'll present his argument. And then at the end of the arguments or during the arguments, counsel has a right to ask both attorneys questions. You can ask while we're arguing if you need clarification on something, or when we finish our argument, you have a right to ask questions. When all of those arguments and the testimony are complete, at that point, the council will need to make a motion to either deny Keller Williams' appeal and approve the business license assessment as determined by city staff, or the other motion that you could make would be to approve Keller Williams' appeal and determine the assessment to be the amount Keller Williams determined their assessment to be. Those are the two options. And after a motion on either motion and a second, council will then have a right to engage in discussion as you normally do during your public meetings. On the conclusion of a vote to either to approve or deny, then you will need to direct either myself if you approve, if you find for the city, or Mr. Brogdon if you find for Keller Williams to write a written decision. The statute requires a written decision to be issued by council with findings of fact and conclusions of law. And the reason we do that is that if either party wants to appeal your decision, there needs to be an order or written decision that is appealed from. In addition to that, with the meeting tonight, as all our meetings are being recorded, and either party would have a right to order a court reporter to type up a transcript if an appeal is taken from this proceeding. So there's a fairly narrow issue before council tonight. And I think Mr. Brogdon would agree to this. And the issue is whether or not the business license fee for Keller Williams is based upon the gross receipts from their 2021 federal tax return or from the amount that Keller Williams, the broker, retained after all commissions were paid to its agent. So it's a fairly narrow issue. And on purpose, I did not submit anything into the public record that would identify Keller Williams' business license, or their gross receipts, or the amount of their business license. That is confidential information. If they decided to put that in the record before you, that's up to them. But I wanted to be sure the city is not introducing that evidence into record, as under FOIA that information is deemed confidential. Unless there are any questions at this time from council, I will call David Deerhog. Ready?
Ready.
All right. If you'll state your full name for the record, please, Mr. Deerhog.
David Christian Deerhog.
And what is your job title with the city of Malden?
The Business and Development Services Director.
And how long have you had that position?
Since March of 2019.
And as part of your duties within that department, are you in charge of assessing and collecting business license fees for the businesses located in the city limits of Malden?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with the business Keller Williams Greenville Central?
Yes, sir.
And are they located in the city limits of Malden?
Yes, they are.
And what do you understand to be the nature of their business?
They're a real estate agency.
And do you know how long they've been in the city, operating in the city limits of Malden?
It's been more than 10 years. They started out at 801 Regent Park Court, and around 5 years ago, opened up a new office at 1030 East Butler Road.
And at both locations, they were in the city limits of Malden?
Correct.
And you're familiar, we are here this evening to determine what the assessment is based upon their submission of their renewal for their 2022 business license, correct?
Correct.
Prior to the 2022 renewal, had Keller Williams been paying business license fee to the city of Malden?
Yes.
And in prior years, when they would pay their annual assessment to the city, would that fee, the amount would be determined based on the gross receipts as reported on their federal tax return?
Correct.
And they were doing that for since they were in operation in the city limits of Malden for about 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other similar real estate broker businesses located in the city of Malden?
Yes, we do.
How many do we have?
Roughly 7.
And all those other real estate brokerage businesses pay their business license tax based on gross receipts?
Yes, they do.
And since the passage of Act 176, the Business License Standardization Act, and since City of Malden updated its business license ordinance, have those same businesses continued to be assessed in the same manner as they were prior to the passage of those laws?
Yes, they have.
And that, again, is based upon the gross receipts of business license of each calendar year.
Correct.
Now, when did the city of Malden update its business license ordinance?
It was passed at the end of 2021 to take effect for the 2022 business license year.
And that was consistent across the state of South Carolina?
Correct.
What was your understanding after the passage of that act, how a business license would be calculated for real estate brokerage offices?
That it was the same.
Nothing changed from how they were assessed in prior years and after from the passage of Act 176.
Correct.
Before I ask questions, next question, Mr. Deerhog, I'm going to pass out the brief that was submitted to you at the end of last week. And attached to that are the two exhibits that I'm going to be asking Mr. Deerhog about. You will, counsel, if you will turn to after the signature page of my brief, there's Exhibit A and there's Exhibit B. I'm going to be asking Mr. Deerhog about these two exhibits. Mr. Deerhog, do you recognize Exhibit A, which is a 2-page exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that?
This is the final assessment notice that was provided to the applicant.
And that was provided from my office to Mr. Brogdon on February 3rd of 2023?
Correct.
And page 2 of that, the business license renewal application, contains the gross receipts as well as the business license assessment to Keller Williams?
Yes.
And also contains a late penalty fee?
Yes.
We'll talk about that in just a second. And can you talk about class number? How do you determine business licenses based on classification? Is that correct?
Yes. Depending on the type of business it is, will determine which rate class it falls into. And then the rate is associated with that rate class.
Keller Williams has been identified as class number 7. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, if you'll turn to Exhibit B.
Ready.
Okay, what's Exhibit B?
Exhibit B is the renewal application form used by the city that's been filled out for the applicant.
So the information that is crossed out there was information submitted by Keller Williams, and written in blue, either above or beside it, is the numbers that the city determined the assessment to be. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, Mayor and Council, these exhibits have been stipulated to by Mr. Brogdon. He has the same exhibits and the information he's going to hand up to you. So for the purpose of protecting the record, we don't need to formally introduce those into the record. Agree with that? Yeah. Now, Mr. Deerhog, back on Exhibit A, there is a again, the late penalty. You see that?
Yes, sir.
And how was that determined?
The late fee is 5%. So when they are late, the first month it is set at 5%, and then each additional month it goes up another 5%. So in this case, this fee represents 9 months of being late.
And then on March 1st of 2023, we received the appeal from Keller Williams, and they also submitted a contested amount of their business license for 2022. Is that right? In an amount of 80% of the total business license?
Correct.
And at that point, according to our ordinance, the amount of late penalties would be reduced would only include the amount that they did not submit to the city.
Correct.
And based on our ordinance, Mr. Deerhog, are you aware if the city staff permitted to waive late penalties?
No, they are not.
And are you aware, based upon the top number of gross receipts that was reported on exhibit or determined to be assessed based on Exhibit A, are you aware if Keller Williams or its agents paid a business license fee on any part of those gross receipts to any other taxing jurisdiction?
No, they have not made that known.
That's all the questions I have of Mr. Deerhog. Please answer any questions that Mr. Brogdon may have.
Mayor Merritt, council members. Thank you, Mr. Deerhog. I appreciate your testimony this afternoon, and I'll try and talk around Dana so it's a little bit easier to talk. Do you have any formal degrees in government relations or anything like that?
My degrees are in planning and resource management. That's my bachelor's degree, and my master's degree is in city planning.
Do you have any degrees in statutory interpretation?
If you're inferring a law degree, no.
So you don't have a law degree, correct?
No, I do not.
Have you ever, in your time spent in your position currently with the city of Malden, been called to interpret this particular statute, 6-1-400, and the other statutes following that?
You may have to remind me exactly what's all in the statute, but if I may, I'll answer the question by saying yes, I'm called upon frequently to make interpretations on the business license ordinance.
And would it be easy just to refer to that as the Standardization Act? That's the new bill that was passed in 2020 that went effective January 1st, 2022. Is that right?
Yes.
And that was a bill that was passed with an effective date of 2022. Is that right?
Correct.
So have there been any additional appeals of business license tax with City of Malden since 2022 that you're aware of?
No, there have not.
So this would be the first time this decision's been put in front of City Council?
Correct.
As far as you're aware?
Yes.
Earlier you talked about classifications, and I believe you stated that Keller Williams is classified as Class 7. Is that right?
Correct.
And what is Class 7?
So the way that the law is set up through the state of South Carolina, there's a whole bunch of different types of business categories. They're put into different rate classes, 7 different rate classes. If you're asking me to describe what rate class 7 is, I can't tell you off the top of my head what all the different business types are that fall into that, but certainly this type that pertain to real estate does. Okay, so it's your testimony that Class 7, as it pertains to the business license tax, would be a real estate brokerage or agency? Yes, they would fall under that.
believe earlier you testified as well that Keller Williams has been operating in the city of Malden for a number of years. I believe you said 10 years. Is that right? Something around that?
At least 10. That's as far back as my file goes, but they very likely could have been even longer than that.
And every year they've submitted a business license renewal application to get their business license renewed each year?
Yes, as far as I could.
Have they ever been late?
They have been late on.
Okay. Have they always paid their full balance that's been requested by the city?
Yes, sir.
And this would be the first time that they have contested what they're being charged by the city. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Have anything and redirect with Mr. Deerhog, so he is free to be off the hot seat.
Can I interject with one question?
Sure.
Exhibit A and Exhibit B. On Exhibit B, there's a date at the bottom. On Exhibit A, there is not. When was Exhibit A submitted versus Exhibit B?
Exhibit A was submitted concurrently with my letter that's at the front, February 3rd of 2020. Right, at this point, I'm going to turn to my argument as to the appeal. And this is a matter of statutory interpretation. That's why we're here. And so nothing better to do than to go through the statutes and to explain to you why I believe the city's assessment is correct. So this appeal is based upon this code section 6-1-400E1B. This section 61400 was added as part of Act 176 that went into effect, as you can see there, effective January 1 of 2022. And David, if you could go down to the first part I highlighted here, and I just want to go through these briefly. And it provides that the business license tax must be computed based on the gross income for the calendar year preceding the due date for the business license 12-month fiscal year preceding the due date. So what Keller Williams did when it submitted or what any business does when it submits its business license renewal, is it submits a tax return. And attached to Exhibit B before you is Keller Williams 2021 business license or 2021 federal tax return. And the gross receipts is reported there on line item number 1. And prior to this year, as testified to Mr. Deerhog, Keller Williams has always paid his business license receipts based upon the amount reported on line item number 1. And David, if you'll scroll on down to it where it's highlighted. So as part of the Business License Standardizations Act, it defined gross income. And prior years, there was never any clear definition of what gross income was. And that's why one of the reasons our legislature adopted this statute. So it's important for the purposes of this appeal for you to understand what the definition of gross income is. And the definition is very clear, and I'll just read it into the record. Gross income means the gross receipts or gross revenue of a business received or accrued for one calendar or fiscal year collected or to be collected from business done within a taxing jurisdictions. For taxing jurisdictions in which the person or business has a domicile, business done within that taxing jurisdiction shall include all gross receipts or revenue received or accrued by such person or business accepting income earned outside of the taxing jurisdiction on which a license tax is paid by the person or business to some other taxing jurisdiction and fully reported to the taxing jurisdiction. This definition is why I asked Mr. Deerhog if he was aware of Keller Williams or any of its real estate agents paying any other business license fee to any other taxing jurisdiction, and he was unaware of that. And as we stand here today, I have not been made aware that Keller Williams has paid any of its gross business license revenue on any of its 2021 gross receipts to any other taxing jurisdiction. Which raises the big issue in this case, is that Keller Williams' position in this case is that it believes that only the amount retained by its broker is subject to the business license, thereby leaving untouched from the business license law all of the commissions it paid to its agents. And under the definition of gross income, that interpretation is incorrect. And I'll get into that a little more as we go into a couple other statutes. David, if you keep on scrolling. Now, this is the particular code section that Mr. Brogdon, in his appeal, submits as the basis for why only the business license tax should only be based upon the amount retained by the brokers. And I want to talk about this section. It says gross income for agents means gross commissions received or retained. Commissions are divided with other brokers or agents, then only the amount retained by the broker or agent is considered gross income. Two things about this code section. My position is that this code section, Section B, was added in only to clarify that no taxing jurisdiction is to double tax on the same revenue, which we can all agree we would not want as a business to be taxed twice on the same revenue. So it's saying that if you pay, as a broker or an agent pays its business license fee on a revenue, then another taxing jurisdiction can't come and tax the same amount. So if you look at this second sentence, it says, if commissions are divided with other brokers or agents, then only the amount retained by the broker or agent is considered gross income. It does not say if commissions are divided with other brokers or agents, then only the amount retained by the broker is considered gross income. It says or agent, which means a fair interpretation of this is to mean that one party's got to pay it. Broker's going to have to pay it, or the agent's going to have to pay it. But you don't get to get an opt-out because some of the commissions are paid to agents. So the broker in charge is responsible to pay the business license tax. And I'll go into why that's true in just a second. So David, just keep on going. Just attached here, and I won't read it because I just wanted to let the council to see that our definition of gross income is consistent with state law. There's slight word differences in the two definitions, but it is the same definition pursuant to our city ordinance, which was adopted after Act 176 was passed by state legislature. David, keep on going. And then we've also included the section that I've just talked about that Mr. Brogdon believes entitles his client not to pay on commissions paid to agents. Keep on going, David. All right, section 1042, I just highlighted this section for you to see how late penalties are determined by the business license office. It's not something that Mr. Deerhog made up. This is a consistent method of how we charge assessments. Mr. Brogdon's appeal does seem to challenge the late penalties as exorbitant, but it's based upon the language of our ordinance and also provides that the late penalty cannot be waived. Keep on going. Section B, if partial payment is made, and at this time, Keller Williams has made partial payment of 80% of the total amount assessed. It provides that late penalty should only be imposed on the portion unpaid, not the portion that they've already remitted. So they do their late penalties at this point after they submitted their the amount in March 1 of 2023 would be reduced accordingly to the amount that is left remain unpaid. David, keep on going. This next section is important. It's 61315. Now, this code section is the same prior to the law change in January 1 of 2022. The change is the same now as it was prior to January 1, 2022. And what the legislature has said is it has made a code section to determine how we treat brokers in charge, which Keller Williams is a broker in charge, and it has a real estate business, and it pays out its commissions to its real estate agents. So what B1 says is the governing body may not impose a license, tax, or fee upon real estate licensees except upon the broker in charge at the place where the real estate licensee shall maintain its principal branch or office, which is here in the city limits of Malden. And then it goes on to say in that last section is that no license fee shall be required of the affiliated associate brokers, salespersons, or property managers of a broker in charge for such gross receipts upon which a license, occupation, or professional tax has already been paid. And again, there is no evidence before you that a tax has been paid on the gross receipts of Keller Williams. So what Keller Williams wants counsel to do is say their client, the broker in charge, only has to pay the business license fee on what they retained, but the city is not allowed to go after any of their real estate agents. We are precluded. The city cannot do that under 61315. If you read the code section Mr. Brogdon wants to argue in isolation, he's got a better argument, but you have to read it in conjunction with this. Our legislature has said we have to treat brokers in charge different than we do other types of businesses. And in this situation, and I suspect it's because of the challenge the city's had to locate all these different agents for these brokers, how are we going to assess a business license to each individual agent? They said it's the responsibility of the broker in charge to collect it. And we're precluded from going after all of these separate agents. So again, based upon the definition of gross income, which is based on the gross receipts, the desire for legislature to prevent double taxation on the same revenue, again, no license fee has been paid on the revenue reported on the gross receipts by Keller Williams. And therefore, Keller Williams has to collect it and remit the payment in full to the city of Malden. And as I suggested in my brief, the remedy for Keller Williams is fairly simple. Before remitting the business license, before paying their agents, they would simply need to collect from their agents what amount of their commissions would be needed to satisfy the business license tax to the city of Malden. That's my understanding of the way it works in other counties and municipalities, and that's the way it should work based upon interpretation of state law. That is the city's argument as to why the city's position as to why Keller Williams business license appeal should be denied. And we would respectfully ask this council to render a decision this evening where you uphold the finding of the business license assessment consistent with Exhibit A before you, the final notice of assessment dated February 3rd of 2023. And that's all I have at this time, unless council has any questions for me.
Hughes, one thing I have on our business license renewal application, in the header there, it says, provide total annual gross receipts to be reported on tax return. Is that your understanding there?
Yes, sir.
And if I go over to the attachment B of the U.S. Return of Partnership Income, and I look down at section 1 you referred to a little later, what does it state?
Gross receipts or sales?
So would you say the 1A title there is consistent with the title within our business application?
Would.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you.
Council, I'm going to call Walden Lacey to testify briefly. Walden, tell me what you do. And that's the Keller Williams Greenville Central we're here talking about today here in Malden. Okay.
Let me interrupt you just a second. We'll need to get a microphone for him. Here we go. You're recording everything.
Yeah, I'll start over. Tell me who you are and what you do.
I'm Walden Lacey. I'm the team leader of Keller Williams Greenville Central.
And that's the Keller Williams Greenville Central here in the city of Malden.
Yes.
How long have you been at this company?
July 2019, I took over the office.
So roughly 4 years?
Yes.
And as your role as Keller Williams team leader, do you handle, or at least in the year 2022, did you handle the business license renewal application?
I did in 2022, yes.
And tell me what you did when you submitted the business license renewal application for the year 2022.
So originally our, what is referred to as our market center administrator tried to renew the business license application. And we were made aware of through a call, we're a top 20 office in the state. And on that call, the head of SCAR, which is South Carolina Association of Realtors, made us aware of this law change and how we should be taxed on our revenue. And when we provided that information to the city, this is when they gave us our application back with the, I think the mayor referred to as line A of the tax return. From there, I took over from our market center administrator. I came up several times with, met with Julie Patton, I believe her name is. And once I presented this, I believe it was the third time I came to the city, she made the determination that she needed to speak to someone at a higher level because she could not make that decision herself. And about 2 weeks later, they let us know that we were not going to be honored with how we were interpreting the statute.
And did you provide a copy of that statute to Ms. Patton or her superior?
I did.
And that was in the last time you met with them?
That's correct.
And did you go over the language that, and you were sitting here while Mr. Hughes was presenting, is that right?
Yes.
And I believe he went through a number of the code sections that we're here to talk about today, 6-1-400, that also governs how you calculate gross income for agents. Were you sitting here for that?
Yes.
And did you go over that portion of the statute with the city at that time?
With Julie.
And did you present how you were calculating what gross income would be for Keller Williams in submitting that business license renewal application?
Correct.
So you attempted to informally work this out with the city of Malden for a number of weeks or months?
Correct.
Has Keller Williams always been ready, willing, and able to pay its tax that it owes?
Yes.
You mentioned SCAR. Can you tell me a little bit more about what SCAR is?
Yes. SCAR is the South Carolina Association of Realtors. The CEO of SCAR is a gentleman by the name of Nick Kremitis. He was the one leading that call that day with our brokers. And he educated us that it was voted on in 2020, and this was the first year of implementation, and to be mindful.
Without saying what Mr. Cremidas said on any of these phone calls, tell me a little bit about more about what SCAR does.
SCAR partners with real estate brokerages to protect and educate of new laws or statutes that may be put into place that could affect our offices.
So this could be through phone calls or Zoom meetings or seminars?
Correct.
And you or someone on behalf of Keller Williams Greenville Central attended one of these seminars in which the statute was discussed?
Correct.
And was that in the year 2022?
Correct.
And it's your understanding that the statute we're here to talk about today went into effect January 1st of 20, correct?
Correct.
What is GGAR?
That is the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors.
And what does that association do?
They provide a service to real estate brokerages in the upstate area that can join under a membership to be able to advertise listings and services for that realtors provide, and the listings to syndicate through third-party vendors like a Zillow or Realtor.com and other websites.
And have you spoken with representatives of SCAR and GGAR?
I have.
Does SCAR and GGAR support Keller Williams' position that we've discussed today?
They do.
All the questions I have for you. Thank you. Answer any questions you may have.
Do well.
Daniel Hughes, I'm the city attorney from Malden. Just briefly, do you agree with me that prior to this business license renewal that Keller Williams Greenville Central would pay on the gross receipts as reported on the 2021 on their tax returns, line item number 1?
So will you ask me that question one more time, because I want to make sure I understand?
Sure. So attached to your business license renewal that you submitted in 2022, there is a 2021 U.S. return of partnership income. You see that?
Yes.
That the sales.
Yes.
Prior to this business license that we're talking about today, did Keller Williams pay a business license fee based upon line item 1C?
We did, and in the past, we have actually we haven't formed a formal appeal, but we were asked, we have inquired on why we were paying on that total number, because we do pay other license renewal with other municipalities as well. For example, Simpsonville, Spartanburg, Travelers Rest, or what we do in those areas.
Have, from the line item 1C that I just showed you from the 2021 return, has any, to your knowledge, has any business license fee been paid on that number to any other taxing jurisdiction?
Yes.
Okay. Have you submitted that information to the city?
We have not.
And prior to 2022, when you would pay your business license fee and you paid out commissions, you would pay out commissions, and the amount that you retained was far less than what was paid out in commissions to your agents.
Correct.
Did you charge your agents for the amount of the business license fee that you would ultimately have to remit to the city?
We do not.
But you could do that, couldn't you?
I do not know if we can do that.
And you mentioned earlier, Mr. Lacey, about conversations you'd had with GJER and South Carolina Association of Realtors, and they've got a financial interest in determining how this statute should be interpreted, do they not?
I don't know, actually.
Well, for you, your own business, you have a financial interest, correct?
The ownership I represent has a financial interest, correct?
The entity that's submitting its business license fee has a financial interest.
Yes.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council will also call Todd Corhigh, owner of Keller Williams Greenville Central. All right, Mr. Corhigh, tell me who you are and what you do.
I was an engineer at a Clemson, but I can't work a microphone, so we'll proceed. I decided that real estate was a better venue, so we've been in since 2009. Actually, today is our 14th anniversary of being in the city of Malden. So great party, y'all. Good. We've had the office now since 2009. We've always paid our licensing fees. And we were made aware of this. And I can tell you that other municipalities, because I own an office in Spartanburg, and they have honored it. And I think what council has said, and I come from a long line of attorneys. My brother's an attorney, my dad's an attorney. I've always said the best looking thing on an attorney is a Rottweiler, but that's just in my family. And what our office in Spartanburg saw was that it was received immediately. And I think what council has said is that it comes down to interpretation. So perhaps the interpretation should come directly from the legislature. Would that be reasonable? I think it would, because while you made your arguments, the legislature enacted this because one of the sponsors of this bill owns an insurance brokerage. And he doesn't want to pay unfairly for revenue he never collects. So for example, if you owned a business and the majority, 90% in most cases, goes out to the people that you share in those revenues with, you're now paying all of the revenue. You're paying taxes or business license fees on that revenue that you've never received, which is a very difficult thing for most businesses to incur. So the legislature did step in to protect brokerages, distribution businesses, because their margins are pennies on the dollar, and to protect agencies that have brokers or representatives or agents from having to pay on revenue that they've never received in the first place. Now, you brought up whether or not the agent should pay that. That's a separate issue. I wholeheartedly disagree with your interpretation, Counselor, because I find it's, when you said that we have a financial interest, you left out that the city has a financial interest. And what has to happen in this case is whether or not the legislature's interpretation of what they wrote aligns with council's. We submit it does not, because the bodies that, while they are lobbying agencies, speak with the House members on a regular basis. And that's part of what they do, and they've shared that with us. And our goal here tonight is to make sure we're acting inside the law. Why? Because we've always paid. So it's not like we're trying to get out of something. We're trying to pay according to what the legislature saw was an injustice done to businesses who paid money on fees that they've never received. That is the essence of where our argument stands.
Thank you, Ms. Corhigh. And how long have you been in real estate?
Let's see. 1999, so 24 years.
How many businesses have you owned or sold or conducted business in the state of South Carolina?
I owned a shredding company, and I sold that back in 2001. I've owned a brokerage business. I used to broker and do cash management for other companies. And then real estate since 2000 and since 1999. So
have you yourself also been a broker in charge before?
I've been a franchisee of multiple locations, yes.
And do you own other locations of Keller Williams not in the city of Malden?
I do.
And list those out for me, please.
We own one in Gaffney. We own one in Lawrence. We own one in Simpsonville. We own 1, 2, 3 in Spartanburg. I might trying to think where all our satellite offices are, but that's about basically the upstate.
Have any of these other taxing jurisdictions had the issue that we're here to talk about today?
Yes.
Okay, and what were those municipalities?
They agree with our position. Oh, those municipalities, Lawrence, Spartanburg, Gaffney, the like, all the ones that I've mentioned.
And in terms of the interpretation you were just discussing in response to the first question that I asked, all those municipalities have also agreed with Keller Williams?
They have.
Or the Keller Williams other franchises that you—
Correct.
Okay. I believe that's all the questions I have for you. Please answer any questions council might have.
Sure.
Statute that I went over, 61315.
Just as it's been presented to me in the last few months here.
Would you agree? I mean, it clearly states that the city cannot assess a business license tax on any agent, business license, real estate agent.
No, that's not what it says.
Well, we can pull it back up.
Let's pull it back up because I saw an or. And
well, do you agree, Mr. Corhide? This says that the county or municipality is in charge of imposing a license.
since I don't have my glasses, can you just read it for me?
Notwithstanding any other provision of the law, the governing body of a county or municipality may not impose a license, occupation, or professional tax or fee upon real estate licensees, except upon the broker in charge, at the place where the real estate licensee shall maintain a principal or branch office.
Keep going.
The license, occupation, or profession,
Okay, so your question was,
based on that language,
right.
the city of Malden cannot go after the business license revenue.
I thought you were referencing something else earlier. Okay, so that based on what you're saying there, the city of Malden cannot go after the licensees, correct?
That's what yes, sir. You agree with that?
I agree with that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Corhide, in redirect to this, were you also sitting here for council's presentation earlier as full arguments?
I was.
And didn't we go through an entirely brand new statute that was passed in 2022?
We did.
And didn't he discuss that this issue has never been brought up before as far as he's aware, other than maybe one other time in one other municipality?
Yes, that's what I recall him saying.
Thank you very much. That's all I got. Thank you. Mayor Barrett, councilmen, councilwomen, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Bo Brogdon. I'm an attorney at Campbell Teague. Have the pleasure of representing Keller Williams Greenville Central and have for a number of years. Keller Williams Greenville Central, as you all know, operating in the city of Malden, is a good business. They run a tight ship. These are good people who want to do the right thing and they want to pay their bills when they come due. And as their attorney, I can tell you that they do. So we are not here in any way, shape, or form to get out of anything, to argue that there's not a license fee that is actually due. Me and council have already stipulated to that. And as that's pointed out in my exhibits that I've provided to you here this evening, we're not disputing that. What we are disputing is the language in the brand new statute that's been passed under the Standardization Act. It's also, I believe, Bill 176. This law is a brand new law. As far as I'm aware, and as far as my clients are aware, there has been no interpretation of this statute other than one brief interpretation by the Attorney General that did not address the specific issue we're here for today. And I believe council has prudently pointed out that we're really here to talk about two sentences is what we're here to talk about. Before I get to that, if we look at code section 6-1-410, and these exhibits are listed out in the, I believe in my, essentially just a copy of the act that Mr. Hughes had already pulled up for you on the big screen. It's essentially the same thing. But as part of that, I think that Mr. Hughes has very delicately laid out how the city is to calculate gross income and how that's supposed to be calculated. It's supposed to be calculated on gross income from the prior year. So in our case, and what we're here for today, that would be the year 2021. The code section 6-1-410 defines this, and that's pretty clear. As Mr. Hughes and I believe Mr. Deerhog have pointed out, this is how it's always been calculated for the city of Malden, as far as we're aware, and always been calculated for my client. Again, clients always paid that. That's never really been a concern. However, again, there's been a new law that's been passed, effective 2022. And as part of that law, there's been revisions made to it. Mr. Hughes, I believe, pointed out that one of those revisions was a definition for how you define gross income for agents. Now, how do we define that? It would be my position and my client's position, counsel, that your job today or this evening is to interpret two sentences. Mr. Hughes has done a very good job of taking you away from the statute to a different statute, 6-1-315. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about one statute, and in particular, one definition in that statute. And in particular, a couple words in that statute. I'll read it for you. It's been pulled up as 6-1400E1B. We've already discussed it before. Gross income for agents is defined as, or it says, means gross commissions received or retained if commissions are divided with other brokers or agents, then only the amount retained by the broker or agent is considered gross income. There's absolutely no dispute that my client is a broker or agency. There's no dispute that it's located here in the city of Malden. There's no dispute that we're not saying that we know that we are required to pay a business license fee. However, we're only required to pay it pursuant to that statute. Definition B. Mr. Hughes already admitted on the record that we have a better argument. There is no real opposition to how that should be calculated. And if you look, and I'd be happy to read before we came here this evening, of what the word retain means, pursuant to Merriam-Webster, which we can, I guess, can take judicial notice of Merriam-Webster's dictionary, means to keep in possession or use, or to keep in one's pay or service. It also means to keep in mind or memory, and it also means to secure or intact. That's what retained means pursuant to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. As we've discussed, and as is laid out in Keller Williams' positions and the arguments in front of you and the exhibits I provided to you, Keller Williams did not retain all of the money that came in its door. This is common sense. It pays its brokers and other agents commissions that are earned. All of you probably have bought or sold a house or many houses, and you know that there's a split of commissions the overwhelming majority of the time, and that's the case for Keller Williams. They are no different. So there's no dispute that Keller Williams is an agent or a brokerage. There's no dispute as to how gross income should be defined for agents or brokers, which is only if the amount that's retained, then only the amount to retain the broker or agent is considered gross income. That's what's been reported to the city of Malden in multiple different occasions, trying to informally resolve this before we come here for this formal appeal. By way of brief hypothetical, I hire you to be my agent, sell my house, enter into a contract where I agree to pay you 6% commission, sell my house. You sell my house, but in the process, you have to split that commission with another agent, say 3%. That 6% comes to the bank, but the 3% goes out before I even can touch it, because that other agent's contractually, it has a contractual right to that money. So if the city's correct, and if Mr. Hughes is correct on his interpretation of how Keller Williams should be taxed pursuant to gross receipts or gross revenue. And that means that we're being taxed on 3% of money that we never saw, or that maybe hit our bank account but was never retained. And again, we've already discussed exactly what that word means. So your job here tonight is to give us a response on what that statute says, not section 6-1-315. Mr. Hughes is right. There are other statutes that can clarify or help you or help guide you in terms of how you may come to a conclusion. But at the end of the day, if we're going to make a classification, it's decided by what gross income for agents is. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to your attention, as Mr. Korahai and Mr. Lacey have already testified to, is this is a brand new law. This is a novel area of the law. Mr. Hughes and I have discussed in length that we are not aware of any other taxing jurisdictions that have had this type of appeal put in front of them. This very well could be the first. And it could create new law. It could create precedent for every municipality in the state of South Carolina. You've already heard testimony this evening from my clients that the city of Spartanburg got it right. We submitted the application similarly to how we submitted to the city of Malden before we got pushback from Mr. Deerhog or his superiors or Ms. Patton. And the city of Spartanburg didn't flinch after we provided them with the new statute and the new language here in Code Section B that's pulled up on the screen. If you fail to uphold Keller Williams' demand for a reassessment, the city is most certainly opening itself up to creating new law. Keller Williams has been in operation, as you've heard, 14 years, this particular branch. We've maintained an office location here and a brick and mortar location here for a number of years. They want to continue to do business with the city of Malden, but they also want to do the right thing. And they want to do the right thing for them, not only for themselves financially, but for the other brokers and agents. Keller Williams would welcome the competition for other brokers and agents to come to the city of Malden. But what incentive would other brokers and agents have to want to come if they're taxed on revenue that they never received or retained? Thank you for your time. Answer any questions that you have.
I have a question. So, in a way, why are we here if we feel like that the Attorney General could give an opinion?
It's my understanding that either a agency or a political body or a member of our legislature in Columbia needs to request that. Keller Williams, as a private citizen, isn't required to do that, nor do we think that we have to pursuant to the statute. An attorney general on this issue is welcome. We're not going to oppose that. I've talked to my client about that, but we're here today to get a decision before that happens.
And as a brokerage, would it be the responsibility of the brokerage to collect what would be the agent's portion?
There's no statutory requirement, and we're not aware of any Malden Municipal Code that would require that. As you've heard, that's not been the practice, and legally, I don't even know if we're allowed to answer your question. I'm not sure that we're even legally allowed to. I respect Mr. Hughes' suggestion, but I don't know, one, if we can legally do that, and two, if we want to change our policies and procedures at this stage as we're trying to grow our business.
So it obviously would, I guess, go against your interpretation of the law today, but prior to, that's probably what was being done because it was based on the gross receipt or sales, so therefore it would have been collection from.
It could have been, or it could have just been a benefit paid by the brokerage. It's just part of you hanging your license with our brokerage. We cover those fees for you. I don't know, in our specific scenario, I don't know which one that was. I do know, and as you've heard testimony, that we've always paid it, regardless of what the assessment is. And again, that was also pre the new statute that's been passed under the Standardization Act that clarifies this language.
I know you asked Mr. Deerhog about class number 7. Can you give me an idea of what class number 7 encompasses? Is it strictly real estate?
I don't know if it's any additional businesses other than real estate. I do know, pursuant to what I've seen, I do know that real estate qualifies under class 7, but I don't know what other businesses fall, hence the purpose of the question. Other businesses fall under class 7.
That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Ms. King.
Thank you. I just need a clarification. I think it was Mr. Lacy that stated that business licenses were paid to other municipalities. And then when asked if that information had been given to the city of Malden, recall the answer being no. So my question is, were those fees paid to other municipalities under this same entity that's located in the city of Malden, or are they other entities separate from the city of Malden legally? Defined by?
If it would help council, could I just get an assistance from client?
Absolutely.
Do you mind if you repeat your question again? Yeah.
So my question was, Mr. Lacy, as I recall, stated that fees were paid to other municipalities within the state, specifically Simpsonville, Spartanburg, Gaffney, et cetera. So my question is, are those fees paid to those municipalities under the same entity that we're discussing tonight for this entity located in the city of Malden, or are they separate legal entities, partnerships, or LLCs?
It's both. So an example would be our office does a transaction in Simpsonville. And what Simpsonville makes us do, we have a report that we run, and it's only the gross receipts we retain that we pay our business tax on of any transactions we've done in Simpsonville.
But
exact same entity, that's correct.
So you would be considered a non-resident operating in the city of Simpsonville and only paying those fees based off of that business in Simpsonville?
Correct.
My follow-up question refers to tab 6 in your notebook, where you said that the city of if I'm reading this correctly, the city of Spartanburg adhered to your understanding of the new law?
Yes, ma'am.
Effective 2022.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
The calculation for the business license application for the city of Spartanburg has the gross receipts listed, and then it has the deductions, which states resident business only. So are those the difference between line 1B and, well, there's nothing on line 1. So I'm assuming line 1B is gross and line B2 is only, is that revenue after commissions were paid?
Yes, ma'am. That would be our revenue. So the agents got their cut, and then that's what was left over. That would be for our Spartanburg location, our Spartanburg brokerage. That wouldn't be this company.
Understand.
Okay.
Understand. This has a different name.
Well, yes, it does.
So for clarification, you're saying that line 1A on the Spartanburg corporate partnership tax return, and also listed at 1B on the city of Spartanburg's business license app, that is your gross.
On 1B, B1 is our gross.
Right. And that B2 is the difference between your gross and commissions paid out.
No, ma'am.
Just a huge difference between those figures, and I can't.
Oh, okay. So I understand what you're saying now. So line in section B, 1, that is what what our gross revenue was that after the agents got all their cut. Okay, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And then resident allowable deduction from last year. I think this is, and I'm not the preparer of this document. I would have to go back, but I believe that allowable ordinance deduction from last year is just the deduction of what it was.
So I see now on the City of Spartanburg application, your actual gross receipts for your tax return are not listed.
That's correct, ma'am.
Or 1A.
Yeah.
You just pulled the number that you consider to be.
Yes,
your
ma'am.
gross.
That's correct. That would be the gross of the business versus the gross of what the agency.
Be the gross less commission.
Yes, ma'am.
Council, it may be helpful, and the difference between this one, this was provided to council as an example because we're not here to necessarily appeal what's happened with the city of Spartanburg, but if we would have included, which it's not included here, the actual tax return that Mr. Lacey's pulled up that would have been provided to council or to the city of Spartanburg, the gross receipts that if we're looking at back at the city of Malden's, when we put in the original number in that line 1A, I believe we discussed,
Right.
which was a much higher number.
Right.
That would be the same for Spartanburg.
Understood.
It's actually about 10x difference in terms of what that should be. So basically what we're getting at it is we went ahead and without having any crossing out or anything that the city of Malden did, we went ahead and submitted how this language reads for the city of Spartanburg, and there was no pushback. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
When we look at A and B, and A is talking about the taxing jurisdiction. So help me understand, should A and B be aligned? Meaning that what B is referring to is making sure that you don't get taxed in other jurisdictions?
Great question. Because it's not entirely clear in the statute. Are you talking about right here on the screen with A and B? Okay. The answer to that, and to Keller Williams' position, would be that B trumps A. That section B should be read in isolation as a clarification. And as Mr. Hughes, I believe, has pointed out or conceded in his argument, that was part of what the revisions were in the Standardization Act. And by way of background for council, this issue, and this is something I failed to mention in the argument, this has been ongoing for years. I mean, we're talking years and years worth of legislative work to come up with this bill. And so, in attempts to clarify certain things, the business license renewal application process is an absolute nightmare in basically every jurisdiction. That was the purpose of the Standardization Act. I believe I attached an exhibit 6 or 7, standardization, new law, new action. It was passed to help businesses and to help clarify certain language. To answer your question, and Keller Williams' position will be that B governs, and A was how it's always been calculated, but B governs as a clarifying definition.
Just a follow-up question. And I know we're not here talking about the city of Spartanburg, but you gave that as an example that they gave no pushback to the business license application and the payment that was submitted.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you required to submit a copy of the partnership tax return?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure they were verifying the gross receipts as reported.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna keep mine kind of simple. 2 questions probably here. I've sold a few houses too. And when I was at the closing, if there was a listing agent and a selling agent involved, and we knew the commission was 6%, it was going to be split. And on the reconciliation I was asked to sign on type thing was like, who was getting money? And so let's keep it simple. $6,000, $3,000 this agent, $3,000 that. And they were handed checks and they walked off with it. So when I went home as my agent or as an agent, that's what he reported as his gross income for that sale anyway, $3,000. What I don't understand is now your client is reported an amount, and then he in turn pays the agent. So at the closing, did the money all come into Keller Williams, or was it the sharing fee to here and to the other agent? So I guess my question is, did all the money come into Keller?
That's a good question, Mayor Merritt. And the short answer is, in pursuant to South Carolina law, as far as I'm aware, you're actually not allowed to cut two separate checks to agents at a closing. Many closing attorneys do it. I don't recommend it as a practice, but it's actually supposed to go into one brokerage account, and that broker's account is then supposed to distribute it to agents. So, and the answer to your question is yes, that is what we do. It goes into Keller Williams account when there's a transaction that closes. If other agents or other brokers are entitled to fees or commissions that are divided, that's how they're paid out of the account. So it would show as gross receipts or gross revenue coming into the account pursuant to the tax return.
So did you lead me to believe that there may be other attorneys that are well practiced in the law of interpretation are breaking the law by not doing it correctly?
Not necessarily that they're breaking the law, just not good practice. A lot of closing attorneys, to speed it up, will pay both agents at the table. Pursuant to South Carolina broker and charge law, that's actually not supposed to happen. But many attorneys do it. But like I said, technically, you're supposed to send it to the brokerage and then commissions are split from there to the extent they are due.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Thank you. So my question is, we have gross receipts of sales on 1A. And this is for the Greenville location, is in Malden. Is that the total figure for the year? And the reason I'm asking that is because in the code, SC code 6-1-400E1A, it says in all cases, if the taxpayer pays a business license tax to another county or municipality, then the taxpayer's gross income for the purpose of computing the tax within the taxing jurisdiction must be reduced by the amount of gross income tax in the other county or municipality. So if you paid Simpsonville and you don't have an office in Simpsonville, was this your gross receipts reduced by what you sold in Simpsonville?
Don't me calling Mr. Lacy if that would help counsel to help answer this question.
Will you repeat that last question one more time before I answer? I just want to make sure I understand.
So on your gross receipts for Greenville, you had to pay business license to Simpsonville for homes sold there. Is this tax return, does it reflect, has it taken out what you sold in Simpsonville?
No.
Okay.
So this is all gross revenue into the company. And if you look at 15, I think it's line 3, 1,566,499. That's what we retained after paying the agents. So per the South Carolina law, a broker must receive it into account, and then the split goes out to the agents. So our retained number and other income number is what we were operating off of when this new law was introduced to us from SCAR.
Okay, but what you sold in Simpsonville, you didn't reduce that amount from the gross receipts or sales for the Greenville office.
No.
In order, I guess, of business license tax in order to.
And it could have been my misunderstanding when I spoke to Julie the first time. I was led to believe, and again, it could have been my misunderstanding, that we had to pay on all of our gross receipts because our building was inside the city. Does that make sense?
It does, but then in this this law, it says the taxpayer's gross income for the purpose of computing the tax within the taxing jurisdiction must be reduced by the amount of gross income tax in other county or municipality.
Yeah, so how I understand that, and y'all can help me out if I'm misunderstanding it, but how I'm understanding it is what we've done with other municipalities is we've operated off this 1.9 million retained, and then we have a record and a report that says, okay, the retained income we received from your municipality was $100,000. That's what we're paying our revenue tax on currently with those municipalities.
Mr. Deerhog, he has some information to provide.
I just want to add a little more information. Maybe you haven't done the business license renewal for previous years for Malden, but they have identified and provided documentation in the past of where they have some of that revenue was reported to other municipalities and paid a business license tax on. And we've honored that and allowed that to happen. The difference is they have not presented that yet this year, or I should say for the 2022 license, but they have been doing that by practice in the previous years prior to. And when they submit that documentation to the city, we would accept that again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Darrell. No question. Yeah, I got one more.
All right, Mr. Alger.
So looking at B again, and when it concludes, then only the amount retained by the broker or agent is considered gross income. Well, why would it say agent? If the agent down below where it says those we cannot go after, right? For they're to pay their share, right? So what says broker or agent, is that just because it's a one-person operation? Therefore, they are a broker and an agent?
Oh, for Mr. Korahai, he's got a lot more experience than I do.
So someone can have a broker's license and not be a broker in charge. Okay, so someone might go on to get their broker's license and then not be the broker in charge of that office. That broker, whether they're a broker in charge or has a broker's license, can still act as an agent and help you find a house. So they would enter into an agency agreement with you. There's no broker in charge agreement that you as the consumer would sign with them. But if they're the listing agent or representing you on the buy side, they can still enter into an agency agreement with you, an agency relationship with you, and act as agent in that situation, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
I'd have a question for you. Early on, we started this, and there were some discussions about degrees and interpretation of law, of tax law, and things like that. Are you familiar with the GARS and I lost my acronym, GGAR representation? Were those degreed tax interpretation real estate lawyers that might have provided an opinion to Mr. Brogdon's client?
I have no knowledge of what opinions were provided to them. I do not believe that's proper evidence before this council today because it's hearsay, first of all. But second, I would say that any opinion from them is certainly biased. They have a financial interest in their interpretation of the statute. And I would ask that those opinions be disregarded. And apparently, based on the testimony, that's the reason why we're here is because of information they received from them, which are realtors in the real estate business.
Thank you, sir.
And just because I'm a lawyer and I have to have the last word.
Oh, sure.
I put in my brief. I cited case law, and I know that this is new for you to be dealing with this, and you're not a court of law. But it's well settled in South Carolina that our courts don't consider a particular clause in a statute in isolation, but be should read in conjunction with the purpose of the entire statute and the policy of the law. Policy of the law is gross receipts. 61315 is extremely important. It was not changed. It was not removed. Brokers in charge collect the business license and remit the business license fee to the city. That has not changed. The only thing 61400 does, and the statute that Mr. Brogdon wants to ask you to accept as a basis of his appeal, only meant to clarify that the city or the county cannot double tax the same revenue, which is not what we're trying to do today. We're trying to tax only the revenue that was reported to the city of Malden as the gross receipts on their 2021 federal tax return. We don't dispute that it was passed through income. We don't dispute that. But that does not mean that we don't get to collect on what the gross receipts are, because we're not allowed by 61315 to go after the real estate licensees. So the city has to be able to collect this business license tax on the gross revenue. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, so Keller Williams is the broker in charge, this particular office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the gross income for agents, when we're talking about the commissions received or retained, how does that apply to Keller Williams, the broker in charge, their gross receipts?
They report on line 1, total amount received into the brokerage firm. They pay out a portion to their agents.
Right, so number B.
Yeah, and you're left with, after that, you're left with on their 2021 return, what they have submitted to you is on line 8. Their total income is what they're asking the city to base its assessment on, which is the amount they were saying is what the amount they retained after all the commissions were paid to their agents.
Right. So what we're concerned with is the broker in charge gross receipts. Is that what we're?
My position is that the business license fee is based upon the gross receipts, line 1. Their position is it's line 8. That's the, Mr. Brogdon, correct me that I'm wrong, but that's a very simple description.
Thank you.
I'm back again. All right, so if we looked at 1A and what you have in italics, and here you have it highlighted, right? That was new material that was added, correct? When we talk about for taxing jurisdictions in which the person or business has a domicile, that language was added.
Mr. Allgood, I can't represent to you, having not the prior code section, whether or not the prior business license law carved out to make sure there's no double taxation. But Mr. Deerhog said in prior, the way the city prior operated is that they were allowed to reduce gross receipts from amount paid to other taxing jurisdictions to prevent double taxation.
So when we look at the 2B right here, where it says the gross income for agents, right, means gross commissions received. Was that added alone?
You're talking about E1B down at there at the gross income for agents?
Correct. Was that added alone, or was there other pieces that were added at the same time?
This entire section 400 is new.
The entire section is new.
61400 is completely new. There was not a 61400 prior to the Act 176.
Okay. So in your document, when you have things that are italicized or underlined, that is just to showcase your position.
Yes, I'm emphasizing language that supports our position.
Thank you.
unless there's any more questions, you know, at this point, it'd be time for council to make a motion with a second to approve, to deny Keller Williams' appeal and approve the assessment as determined by city staff, or to grant the appeal and determine the business license tax to be the amount reported by Keller Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Brogdon. Okay, council, any questions or discussion among ourselves? Now's the time. Hearing none, what would be the pleasure of council for a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make the motion to deny the appeal request by Keller Williams.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Matney. Any discussion? Not sure which hand went up first, so I'll go with Ms. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only comment I would like to make along with the motion is, as it was discussed here tonight, that Keller Williams again discuss and report back to the city of Malden those business licenses that were paid to other municipalities that should not be taxed to the city of Malden. If that makes sense. So if you paid for your entity located in Malden, if you paid a business license to another municipality, that would be a deduction on your tax return, on your business license application. You just need to show us proof that those receipts were paid to the other municipalities.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Matney.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been some discussion about us accepting the appeal and potentially creating new law as a result of that. And my gut tells me that the opposite is actually true, is that if we had accepted the appeal, or if we do accept the appeal, that's where the new law gets created. I don't think that there is any question, speaking to Mr. Corhai's testimony, that there is some work that needs to be done in the General Assembly to clarify some things. But in contrast to Mr. Brogdon's statement that everything revolves around the new language put in the Business License Standardization Act, I don't think that this exists in a vacuum. I think that Mr. Hughes' points regarding 61315B1 are valid, and that there's that layering that goes along with it, and that we have to look at that, and we have to examine that as we move forward in this process. So, I would certainly urge the General Assembly to take a look at some of the wording where it is unclear and makes entities like us not just look at the layering of different code sections, but try and figure out where legislative intent lies and moving forward. So I just don't know that we have any other option at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. Anyone else?
I will say that legislative intent, as Mr. Matney put it, is kind of where I'm at as well. This whole section, whether they relate to one another, I don't know. I don't know if they relate to one another or they're standalone sections. I don't know what the intent was, so I agree.
Mr. Allgood. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that sometimes when laws are written, is it up to us to figure out what the intent of the legislatures meant? Because as we can see here today, there are sides that have different interpretations of the intent and meaning of these. So I'm not, I feel like like Mr. Matney said, they do need to come and clarify.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzner. I appreciate both parties being here tonight and going through this. Understanding what the legislature intent is sometimes is an interesting journey. I think historically, 14 years, 9 years, plus the other broker in charge agencies we have agreed on the reporting. It's been working well. Then this came about and created some additional questions. I think the ultimate decision, I'd like to see us, for one, I think an opinion from Attorney General worded very carefully, that this is what we want them to interpret. And also with the General Assembly would be the proper way to go. And that's a process we should see work out, but I'm not a big precedent setter, so appreciate that. Anything else? Hearing none, the motion before us is to deny the request by Keller Williams. I think whole title, Keller Williams, there's more to it. Greenville Central, thank you, is before us. So the question is, all those in favor of the motion to deny Keller Williams Greenville Central, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous to deny Keller Williams Central. A second piece we need, I'd ask council to consider a motion to direct the prevailing party, which is us, our attorney, Mr. Hughes, to prepare a written decision of tonight's decision and present to council by the next regular council meeting, which should be May the 15th. They give you enough time.
Yes, and I will provide that to Mr. Brogdon before I have him review prior to sending it to you.
All right, thank you, sir. So would council entertain that motion?
So moved.
Okay. A motion from Mr. Matney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. King. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to direct prevailing parties counsel Mr. Hughes to prepare this written decision, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries unanimous. Okay. Next item on the agenda is council request. Do we have any? Mr. Matney.
Just going to move we adjourn.
Oh, okay. No council request. The next item is adjournment. Mr. Matney.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, Ms. King. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, we stand adjourned approximately 7:40. Give us about 5-minute recess, then we'll go to the first committee meeting for tonight.
Yes, hurry up. JR, we're up there if you want to come on up. Please.
I paused this. Do you want me to start it back up? Only paused it because I was talking to Daniel.
That's fine. No, I'll take care of it.
Okay. This is paused.
Oh, good. I was just gonna stop it and start it again. Thank you.
You can stop it as soon as it starts again. I just put precedent on it. This.
Yeah, I wasn't getting my back. Now it's ready. So you don't want to say. Stuff here. Not today.
And but for.
Sorry, keeping you late. You see that down there on the radio. Okay. I don't want to make you. Oh, well, goodness gracious me.
Here it comes.
Sorry.
Please come. Here it is.
Here you are. Did you, oh, that was the stand up here.
Stand.
You need to hit it, Daniel, record on something. Give me just a second to get all this fired up over here. I'm so sorry. Oh, and we're not even up plugged in over there. Lovely. We were, but Miss King wanted to walk through here, so I took down the little cable that was blocking that from happening. Are you recording? All right, we should still be recording.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call the Economic Planning and Development Committee meeting together on May 1st. It is 7:42 and everybody is here. We're going to go ahead and public comment period. Anybody have anything they want to say? Hearing none, we're going on to the reading and approval of minutes. What do I hear?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for April the 3rd,
We have a motion for approval. Is there a second? Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved as presented. Reports, communications from City Officer, Mr. Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On the economic development front, I'll have economic development and then cultural center. So on the economic development side, Co-Transco is close to finalizing all this right-of-way acquisitions for Jenkins Street and Jenkins Courts. Final agreement should be completed by next week. Knock on wood on that one. Development interests have not slowed down. We've entertained nearly a dozen development firms that are interested in working in the residential, commercial, or industrial sector. The big challenges are lack of greenfield sites, escalation of land costs, escalation of construction costs, and the increased cost of financing today's modern economy. That's the economic development side of the equation. Any questions for that half? For the cultural center, we have really good revenue numbers for CATS. Total revenue is $22,000 plus another fees of $2,100, making $24,000 in total revenue. Our costs are expected to be about $21,000. We will net $3,000 on that performance. Malden City Singers wrapped up their presentation for their spring concert, and we will see their revenue and cost projections now that everything is over in the next report from finance. I'll have those numbers next month. MCG Shakes will have Lub's Labor's Lost this weekend in the amphitheater on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 6:30 for those nights, free admission for anybody who is a fan of Mr. Shakespeare. We have our next performance will be You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Auditions were March 26th. The rehearsals are going on right now. And the performances will be May 27th through June 4th, those weekends, 7 performances in total. Get your tickets fast while you can. We'll have summer camp for theater programs this summer. The camps run from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday through Friday. Older children will have 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The prices for those fees will be $115 on the low end to $325 on the high end. They'll have ranges of 6 to 11 for beginner Broadway, then leading player for intermediate and advanced, it's ages 6 to 11, then Broadway bound, which is all higher levels of category, ages 6 through 17. And then Shakespeare It Up will be the next title up from ages 10 to 17. And then have Young Playwrights. Again, those will range from June the 12th through August the 4th. So lots of opportunities to engage in our new summer camp. And then on status of leases, we are negotiating with our tenants at the Cultural Center. The Art Haven has been presented with their lease agreement, and they are pleased with the rates we have proposed. We're meeting with our guitarist, Brandon Dyke, who is scheduled for May the 4th. We'll present our lease options for that one. And then leases will be negotiated with instructors and community groups when all of the rate changes are made in the budget. And that is the general update of officers.
Anything for JR? Mr. Kraling?
On the summer camps, has that been advertised on our website?
I believe it's on the Malden Cultural Center website, not the city one, but the Cultural Center one.
Thank you.
Just a general, good job. Good job by your staff.
Thank you. Yeah, they are good, and they are good to me, and they're good for the city. So thank you very much for your appreciation.
An awesome job this weekend.
Yes, we had the.
I don't know if you want to mention anything that might have gone on.
Sorry, yes, and looking forward, I forgot to look backward one day. Yes, so we had our Malden Blues and Jazz Festival. We estimate between 1,500 and 1,700 people attended, and very good planning by our staff. Ms. McAtee did an excellent job planning all the vendors, all of the lineups. I appreciate all of City Council that were attended. Hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and please give any good feedback to our Cultural Center staff. They put on a good job and did a good presentation.
Thank you, JR. We're going to move on. We don't have any unfinished business, but we do have two pieces of new business, and I'm going to throw both of those back to you.
Yes, sir. We have a change order from Universal Infrastructure Group, UIG, now moving forward. In essence, UIG was set to perform the improvements to the Malden Trail, and when they met with Greenville County said that stormwater improvements had to be made to it. From there, they engaged with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering, who is their engineering group, to complete those stormwater management improvements. The cost it seemed was a little high for those improvements, so we met with Greenville County to look for alternatives. After meeting with the staff, they recommended that we proceed as a self-performing or alternate improvements, but the cost for engineering remains. And so we have a cost escalation from what was originally proposed back in January 23, where the City Council authorized $256,500. The engineering costs an additional $21,300, bringing the total price now to $277,800. That is a very brief summary of the memo that's presented. And is there anything else that city manager would like to, or city administrator would like to add to that?
Do we have a motion? Mr. Kraling?
Help me with this because I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. Sounded like to make a motion to increase the contract with UIG from $256,500 to not to exceed $277,800.
That's an adequate motion. If you would authorize the mayor to execute all documents related to the improvements as you have just described.
What you just said. I so let me just restate this motion here. Okay. I would like to make a motion to increase the cost of the contract with UIG for the related to the trailhead from $256,500 to $277,800, not to exceed. And for this to be negotiated, permit the mayor to execute in this.
So we have the motion from Mr. Kraling. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, forwarding this to full council, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and we're going to go ahead and forward that to full council. JR, keep rolling.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The second one is for a construction easement with Maverick Yards. The recommendation is to authorize the city attorney and city staff to craft a temporary construction easement agreement for both Jenkins Court Investment LLC and Maverick Yards TH LLC. related to the parcel. Well, that's a long number, but we'll say 208 Main Street, Malden, South Carolina, and authorize the mayor to execute agreement upon council. Basically, this is a request by Parker Group and Long Branch Development to stage at the former Four Seasons site so they can do construction. This will allow them to stage all their construction materials and allow them to cross over from basically Main Street to the lot over to Jenkins Court onto the construction site, rather than having to go all the way up Main Street, up around Jenkins Street, come back down, which may interfere with the construction of Jenkins Street. So we're trying to prevent a confluence, a discombobulation, crash of construction that is going to occur between Co-Transco and these two groups, hopefully.
So with that said, do we have a motion to forward to full council authorization for the city attorney and city staff to craft a temporary construction easement agreement with Jenkins Court Investments LLC, Maverick Yards TH LLC related to 208 Main Street, Malden, South Carolina 29662, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement upon authorization by city council?
So moved.
I have a question.
We can do that through that in the discussion part.
Well, I had a question for him.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. So will there be privacy fencing around the construction equipment?
We can have that as part of the negotiated temporary construction easement from that side of it. Yes.
Thank you. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Mr. Crayling.
Stated there, recommendation that it's some kind of privacy fence, and also that the spirit of the letter be something like the Boy Scouts, leave it better than you found it.
I wholeheartedly agree, sir.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of forwarding this to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and we're forwarding that to full council. That brings us to, when I have to go back to my agenda. Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Second public comment period. Hearing none, do we have committee concerns? Leaves us one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned at 7:53.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Call to order the Public Works Committee meeting, May the 1st. It is 7:55 p.m. I have here Ms. Carol King and myself, Jason Crayling. Michael Reynolds is not here today. First start off with public comment. Public comment, anything online? Reading and approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the committee meeting minutes from April 3rd as submitted.
Mr. Reynolds not being here, I will second that. Any discussion? Not those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Work communications, Mr. Fleeman.
Oh, okay. Sweet. So you want me to do that all over again? All right. All right. So that's the budget process. The other thing that Seth asked me to bring up is that last week notification came out about the SCIP grants. Malden was awarded approximately $3.4 million. We have a municipal match of about $600,000, so it'll be a total of $4 million for sewer rehab in the RG2 basin.
Move on to then, and there's no unfinished business here. New business, park stormwater project grant.
Oh, we start with this one. All right. So, as part of the work we did with KCI, we investigated some areas that were of known concern or known flooding within the city. There were a couple projects, Oak Park stormwater and Bishop Heights, which we put out for. There was a SCORE grant. That's the name of it. Just for an opportunity for funding. Both of these projects are just areas where we've had issues. City Council, Public Works Committee has expressed interest in doing stormwater work around the city. These were opportunities for us to perhaps offset the costs of us addressing some of these issues with grant funding. Based on the design of the projects and what they entailed, the Oak Park stormwater project scored significantly higher than the work at Bishop Heights. Oak Park, which is a drainage basin that goes from Miller Road through Springfield Park, out the back to Oak Park Drive and then Elkwood. Historically, that area was wetlands and streams. And so in the construction of Springfield Park, we filled it all in. And the stream itself was put underground in two 48-inch concrete pipes. Pipes are failing. We've had significant sinkholes open up, issues of flooding of people's property. And based on the nature of the grant program, this project scored very, very high because it's restoring nature. The grant itself was awarded in the amount of $1.16 million. And it's all part of the American Rescue Plan Act Stormwater Infiltration Program. It does require a municipal match. There are monies available in the stormwater reserve from our ARPA allocation. However, there is a discrepancy. And the city needs to decide if we'd like to move forward and cover the difference out of general fund or capital, or just turn it down and move on.
Question here. When do we have to make the decision by?
The end of the month.
Accept or not to accept?
That's correct. So the letter that came out told that we had to respond within 15 days, and I knew that the process of going through committee and council would take longer than the 15 days. So I asked for an extension, and they went ahead and gave extension. So if the decision of the committee is to put this before city council to discuss as a whole, the window of extension allows for that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm understanding correctly, if we accept the grant, we have questionable funds remaining in ARPA. So we would be looking at approximately $600,000 to pull from the general fund to fund the remaining project.
That is correct.
Plus all cost overruns.
Thank you. I'll reserve. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if we were to accept, how long do we have to execute?
I think the ARPA money has to be done by 2024, 2026.
December 31st, 2026.
Just to pitch it both ways, you know, if you've ever been to downtown Greenville and gone to Cleveland Park, it's very nice. It has a water feature. It's part of the charm of Cleveland Park. Restoring the stream in and around Springfield Park would provide a more of a naturalist approach to Springfield Park. It could become an amenity. There's obviously still maintenance involved, but it will assist with the downstream flooding that affects a number of homeowners.
For sake of further discussion, I would like to go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you, to forward the Oak Park Stormwater Project to full council for May 15th to consider.
Motion and a second itself. Any discussion?
Having said that, I'm not so sure I could personally support accepting the award because I'm concerned where the additional funds are going to come from. We're in the middle of our budget process now for those of you who are joining us tonight or online. First reading will be May 15th, second reading in June. And in that budget with extra funds, we have already directed our city administrator to implement a across the board pay raise for our employees, which we as council felt was very important. So that was about this amount of money. And I'm just concerned that there's no extra funds available in this budget. But with our form of government, I think it is only reasonable to forward to full council so that the other 4 members can discuss as well.
I would like to point out at this time, the perfect opportunity or segue. We've had conversations with the folks at Greenville Water. It's a Greenville County Stormwater. As you know, they collect a stormwater fee from every resident within the city of Malden. They use that stormwater fee from all of our residents to administer a program. That money doesn't go towards capital projects. It doesn't go into investment into the infrastructure. We pay for that out of the Public Works fiscal budget. When we were speaking with Greenville County, they identified that we can levy a stormwater fee on top of their stormwater fee to be collected for a stormwater capital plan. If it's an interest of committee or council, we can consult with KCI for them to do a rate study similar to what we've done before to kind of come up with, if this is what we charge our residents, this is how much is going to be funded in this capital program, and these are the kind of projects we can do. Stormwater is obviously never going to go away, and everyone wants to help. Without a financial source of income, there really is not a way to approach a lot of these issues.
And as a follow-up, yes, I agree 100%. I am all for doing all that we can as a city to prevent any stormwater runoffs that we currently have. However, we're not a bank and we don't have endless funds. So we have to be cautious and good fiduciaries of our taxpayer dollars. So I don't want anyone to think that I am not for these type projects. It's just we have to find a way to fund it. So that's a conversation that perhaps we need to have in the next upcoming budget.
Councilwoman, I could also offer that as part of, if this moves forward to full council, which it sounds like it's going to, we can put together a funding mechanism, and at least as far as where those funds would come from for the remainder of that, and then how to appropriately deal with cost overruns. I know one of the big asks that we were going to come to this committee is leveraging KCI to look at a fee and capital improvement plan for stormwater. And that assessment would cost as it's not change order, what do we call that? Task order 3. And I believe that they gave us a quote for about $20,000. Is that right? To do that assessment. So, which could be funded through the current ARPA appropriations for stormwater, and would at least give the information to council to then weigh and determine if it's an appropriate next step to be looking at that or not.
Thank you. That'd be appreciated.
And on this, so I have a, let's just say religious version to adding anything to anybody's bill. With that being said, this really isn't being dealt with at all. It's not dealt with by the county. The county is basically administration, paperwork, environmental things sent to the government. It needs to be done. There is no real mechanism in this area for the funding of that. So with that, anything you can bring before the next, for the council meeting to discuss this with, I hate the short amount of time we have to make a decision. That's my real regret here. But make sure we make a good decision. There's money there. This is a problem. It needs to be addressed. How do we address it? So just Matt, do some more of your magic. Be prepared for the next meeting.
Sure.
Anything else? With that being said, I have a motion to send this to full council. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Let's have it move forwarded to full council. All right, Public Works facility upgrade fencing.
This one's pretty simple. Public Works, we moved in about 2 years ago. We had always historically used Jenkins as a laydown yard for brush and leaves as they get picked up before they go to the landfill. With the sale of that Jenkins property, those operations have been moved to Public Works. For the last month or so, you've probably seen in the weekly updates, I've made mention of Public Works renovating. There's approximately 4 acres that are undeveloped that is part of our property. We've taken a small portion of it, we've graded it, and we've got it ready to be those laydown operations. We need to modify the fencing so that trucks can get in there and we can keep the Public Works facility secure. We reached out to several fencing contractors, some that have done work with the city. Cost to do this modification to fence in this extension of the Public Works property is approximately $10,695.40. And we're recommending that we approve the allocation from Seegers Fencing.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion to forward to full council the request from Public Works for the upgrade as it's related to the fencing at the Public Works facility in the amount of $10,695.40 forward to council for approval.
Motion. I will second that. Any discussion? That those in favor of moving this to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign. It's passed. It goes to full council. All right. All right. Any public comment? Earlier, there's nobody online with any comment, correct? Okay. Committee concerns?
It's not a concern, but since we're in the second meeting and some folks may be departing, I would like to wish a happy birthday to our city clerk, Miss Cindy Miller. Her birthday was yesterday. We won't say how old she was, but it was a big one. So happy birthday, Cindy.
That may be worse than giving the actual number.
Well, the big one can be, that could have been the big 4-0. All right.
Now I'm thinking of Red Fox. It's a big one. Anyways. All right. On that, what do I hear about adjournment?
So moved.
All right. Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Ms. Kusnar? We're ready. I will go ahead and call the third committee meeting, which is our Finance and Policy Committee, to order. It is 8:11. Present, we have myself, Carol King, Ms. Diane Kuznar, various department heads, our city administrator. Our chair, Mr. Reynolds, was unable to attend tonight, so he asked me if I would chair the meeting. So here we are. Second item would be public comment. No, Mr. Duncan's shaking his head no. So we'll move on to reading and approval of the minutes from April the 3rd.
I'm sorry. I will make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for April the 3rd.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. Have a motion. I will second that motion. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. Reports from our city officers. Up first, Mr. Duncan, do you have a report tonight?
Sort of. Just wanted to say real quick, I know we've got everybody speaking tonight, so I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but did want to kind of remind the committee and council that we are going to have our public hearings for the budget on our May 15th meeting. We'll have one for both the budget modification, which Ms. Abercrombie is going to talk about in just a second, and of course for our upcoming budget for fiscal year 23-24. I do want to take a moment also, I know he just stepped out, but Mr. Matthew Fleeman did a tremendous job to secure more than $3 million in grant funding through the SCIP grant. And although he downplayed it there at the podium, that was a tremendous feat. I know a lot of work went into that, and I really appreciate all the hard work he put in and others as well to get that, because that's a huge game changer for us and for that basin to be able to handle that. And with that said, I just want to just once again just lift up and showcase all of our employees and our department heads for the phenomenal work they do day in and day out, but especially when we have special events and other community things, and the tremendous effort that they go through cannot go be recognized enough at this point. And so just thank you. And I think the last thing I wanted to say is not only is it Ms. Miller's birthday, or was yesterday, but it's also Municipal Clerks Week nationally as well. So do want to recognize her for that and all her hard work that she does day in and day out for the council, for myself, and for others. So thank you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Up next, we have Ms. Abercrombie, our finance director.
Good evening, members of committee. I don't have anything to report much on this. Everything looks good. Just surprising, we only have a couple more months in the fiscal year. Crazy to think. But everything looks normal and where it should be. And I will be back for.
All right. Stay close, Mr. Putman.
Good evening, committee. How are y'all?
Good.
Wanted to report that the comp and class changes were made, and the employees saw those on their 428 checks. And I just want to say, we want to say thank you for the support that committee and full council gave us for the comp and class. And again, thank you. We will be meeting in the second week of May with our second group of what we call the engagement roundtables, so we can have a two-way communication and listen to our employees and hear their suggestions, concerns, and things of that nature. So we'll be doing our second group of around, I think we've got 13 employees for that one. Also, the week of May 29th, we will be meeting with our health insurance brokers to take a look at the first 5 months of the year, the data from that, so that we kind of not wait until the end of the year or into September. We want to see if we've had anything large that could pop up. Right now, we have not. So we're looking pretty good, but we want to dig into that data and just make sure that there's nothing that could surprise us later on. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions? Good. Thank you. Okay, we have no unfinished business, so that leads us to the new business, which is what we typically do in May of every year, which is our budget amendment ordinance.
Yes, what you have before you is a list of the items that have been approved at various times throughout the year. by council. Majority of this is grants. So there's pretty much no cost to the city. It's an offset. And then the comp class and study plan adjustment is in here as well for the remainder of the year, of this fiscal year. And then the net difference to the funds, which would be use of fund balance, is 25,000 in the capital fund, and that was for the permitting on the trail out at the bridge. And then 200,000 from the ARPA funds that's going to be brought back and be used this year because the fire apparatus that they're going to buy is cheaper now than if we wait. So that's just an adjustment. We're just going to spend it out of this year's ARPA instead of next year's ARPA. And that's the only increase or decrease to fund balance that happened with this budget amendment. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise.
Thank you. This is about the cleanest budget amendment I have seen in my tenure. So thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Any questions before Holly gets too far away? And what would be committee's pleasure?
Okay. Well, at this time, I'll make a motion to forward this budget amendment to council for full and first, for approval and on first reading.
I have a motion. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of forwarding the budget amendment? Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. All right. That leads to our second public comment. Don't see anybody jumping out of the chairs or off the computer screen. Any concerns? Hearing none. What do I have on adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All those approve of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.
Okay, I am going to call the BDS committee meeting to order. It is 8:19. All members of the committee are present. First item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, what do I hear on reading and approval of the minutes for April 3rd?
Motion to approve as second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, none opposed. Motion carries. Next, we have the reports or communications from city officers. Mr. Deerhawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, committee members. Touch on the budget real quick. With that budget amendment that you just passed, we're going to be right in our inspection line item now. We're doing great in all our other budget line items as well. Planning Commission met last week on Tuesday, April 25th. They had two items that they reviewed. One was a commercial rezoning at 307 East Butler Road. It was for a proposed badminton club. During the public hearing for that item, there were a few different questions that were asked about different particulars of the project, including if they would provide fencing along the property lines and if they would construct an underground stormwater management system. The applicant wasn't able to answer those or provide real clear answers to those questions at the meeting. So for that reason, Planning Commission voted to table that item until the applicant returns this next month with more information about that proposed development. So stay tuned. That'll probably be coming to the committee and council next cycle. The other item that was reviewed was a final development plan for the planned development at the corner of Tanner Road and Verdon Road. That was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. You might recall this project, it was a plan development previously approved by the City Council back in November. The only change that occurred since that time was there was a little bit of a decrease in the number of units. They decreased from 473 down to 461 to accommodate their site plan. And then they also decreased the workspaces from 14 to 13, but otherwise there was really no notable changes to that project. And according to the city's ordinance, the Planning Commission is the body that is designated to approve the final development for plan development. So that item won't pop up on any city council agenda, but I still wanted to make you aware that that had been approved by the Planning Commission. And lastly, as for the activity in our department for the month of April, after setting a record the previous month for building inspections, we did come back down a little bit. We went from over 1,900 inspections in March down to just over 1,400 in April. But our builders did a lot better job this last month and passed at a much better rate. We're happy for them. We did see 40 new home starts permitted during the month of April, which has kind of been in that consistent area for the last few months now. And we also saw the last homes finished building in Highland Chase. So all homes are now complete in the Highland Chase subdivision. That's a 202 subdivision that was developed on East Standing Springs Road. And finally, there were some new businesses that did open up in the city in April, including 7 in the city limits. Some of those include Bloor Properties over on Alexander Street, Cherrydale Pharmacy on West Butler Road, Giada's Beauty Bar on East Butler Road, Art of Queen Home Care Services on South Main Street, Walden Financial Services on East Butler Road, Modern Cigar on East Butler Road, and Truist Advisory Services on West Butler Road. And that's the report I have for you today.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Deerhound?
And then for the next item, you have Mr. Shropshire, who's here to give you an update on the fiber cable installation happening in the city.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. I'm with Quarry. We're the business partner for WOW that's building the infrastructure within the city of Malden and some of the other surrounding areas. To date, we've gotten roughly, I think, a little over 150,000 feet of interduct placed, which is continuing at a rate of anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 feet. We've handled most of the complaints and escalations that have come up on a very timely basis. Our restoration has been good overall. We've tried to deal with any issues or any challenges that come up accordingly as quickly as possible. That's really all I have.
Okay. So they did my yard on Friday.
The restoration?
No, not restoration, but the digging and running the line. I'm very pleased. I was worried, but after seeing, because you have this vision that they will be digging a trench through your whole yard, that they're actually just digging big holes. These workers are about the best I've seen. I mean, they stay after it. They are completely muddy from head to toe, and they work all day long, and they work hard. And so thank you for that. I was also pleased that they take a piece of plastic, and when they dig the hole, all the dirt goes onto that piece of plastic. I was concerned that maybe that was going to sit there overnight and then my grass would die. But no, they came back, they filled it back in, they laid the grass back on top. We did have to put some grass seed down just because there were, our yard is done by seed, not by sod. So there were some, dirt spots, but we've taken care of all of that. I do have a concern though for people who do have sod. I guess they will take it up and then be able to lay it down?
In most cases, yes, ma'am. And I have a letter here that my crews have. I can.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. I think I did give your name and number to one of my neighbors. I think a water line had been hit.
Yes.
Saturday.
I think we all gave her his number.
I think so. Yeah.
Was it your house too?
It was down from my house.
I'm very used to that. I get calls at different hours. I always answer and I try to address as the situation warrants it.
Yeah, is that something that y'all go back in and repair, or does a plumber have to repair it?
We have the crews, a lot of times have a plumber that we have on standby. It's as simple as they hit it and they break it. You can go to Home Depot, you can get the couplings, you can put the glue on, pop it back together.
Okay.
If it's something that's more extensive or more invasive, then we have plumber on standby that we have come out while the trench is open, so we closed up at that.
Okay, all right. That's basically all I have. Anyone else? Mr. Manning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you for being open and willing to talk to our residents when they have problems. You know, when they're calling us on a Saturday afternoon, and then we're calling the city administrator. You know, these are issues that are extremely important to our residents. And I want to thank you for being a good corporate neighbor, and good corporate resident, and being responsive when those issues arrive and getting them taken care of. The one resident that we were just talking about from Saturday, I've heard back from her a couple of times, and she was appreciative that you assured her that any of the problems that occurred, whether it was from the big water main or the small water break, would be taken care of. And for our residents to have that level of assurance makes us feel better about the process. So thank you for that. How long do you anticipate full installation from now until completion?
The city of Malton, it's hard for me to say. Our engineering is done by a third-party firm, and they have been lackluster at best in getting us the engineering, so that has slowed us down. I would anticipate that we would be out of the city of Malton by the third quarter of this year, would be my guess.
And during that construction and installation process, are you going to continue being in relatively constant contact, or at least regular contact, with administrative staff so they know what's going on and how things are going when we get those additional calls before we give them your phone number?
Yes, sir, I absolutely will. I've learned, I've been in this for 30 years, and I've learned in that time that if we go somewhere and we leave a positive impact, whoever I've worked for, our saturation when we turn up for subscribers is a lot higher than it is if you go somewhere and you've had even one or two negative complaints that weren't resolved. It directly affects it. And at the end of the day, our goal is that the residents are left as good as we find it, or better. They should not bear the burden of any damages or any other improprieties. So it's our job to make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you for that, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just one other comment I'd like to make. My husband actually went out and spoke to the workers because, you know, we have an irrigation system, and he just wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be anywhere near that. And they had actually scoped out the heads so that they knew where they needed to stay away from. They were very respectful. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything? Thank you for being here and for the letter. We appreciate it. Okay, there's no unfinished business. There's no new business. Any public comment? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Eric Cothran. I work with Cothran Homes. We're a local builder here in the upstate. I live at 100 East Washington Street downtown, but our company does work here in the Malden area. Thank you for taking the time to hear me. Just want to voice some concerns from a builder's perspective. Matt and the guys over there, wow, have been very responsive, but we have had a couple issues in the neighborhood. Right down the street used to be the former Shanks development or driving range. Just some cracked driveways, some damaged sod was just part of the concern. When you have a cracked driveway or something gets damaged like that, when you go back to replace it, it's never quite the same. When you're trying to sell houses or you're trying to, build a community, these are issues that we have to deal with. When a prospective homeowner comes into our neighborhood and they see damaged sod, they see driveways that have been cracked and replaced, it's just not as easy to sell. Just want to kind of voice that concern along with, I guess, what gave the city of Malden the authority to come in and run this fiber optic in our neighborhood. We never had a pre-con. We never had any meeting beforehand. The guys just showed up. So it was kind of a surprise to us. And then talking with the guys in the field, they were like, well, we're working for Ansco, where they didn't know who they were working for exactly. Been very nice, very responsive. Actually, I did get in touch with Matt today. He assured us that we'll take care of any damage. He actually told me about the meeting today, and I ran it up to the boss man, and he said, Eric, I think that'd be a good thing for you to attend. And so here I am, and I just appreciate your time and listen to what I have to say.
Thank you so much. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none. Any committee concerns? Hearing none, what do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, we are adjourned at 8:33.
We will go ahead and call the next committee meeting to order. It's the Recreation Committee at 8:33. Mr. Matney and myself are present. Mr. Reynolds is not. First point of order is public comment. Is there any public comment here in chambers or online? I see none. Reading and approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Move for approval as presented.
I second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We will then report to city officers. We have Assistant Recreation Director Willie Stewart tonight. Sorry, Willie, you're here on a late night.
It's all good.
You're
good experience.
filling in for Bart, and it's a late night, so I appreciate it.
Well, good evening to the Recreation Committee. Just wanted to run through our budget. Everything seems to be going good and won't be on task to be where we need to be at the end of the fiscal year. As far as recreation, we just finished the installation of cameras at the sports center and at the city park area. So that'll help us get a couple of eyes on some of the vandalism going on around the area. The walking trail project is nearly completed. Still waiting on them to come and finish one part of it, but that's part of the GCRA fund that we're paying with that money as well. We are part of the Park Hop. I don't know if y'all have heard about us participating in Park Hop. I know Bart wanted me to explain to everybody kind of what Park Hop is, but Park Hop is the surrounding areas of Spartanburg and Greenville as far as the park, the municipalities in this area. Greenville, Spartanburg, Fountain Inn, Simpsonville, us. We all partner together to kind of showcase our parks in the neighborhoods. And so we have a Park Hop date, July the 14th. It'll be here out here at the City Center Park. And we'll get together and we'll just have a lot of games and clues and stuff for them, for all the people to kind of enjoy the park area. And they actually go, it's called a Park Hop because during this year, they'll go to 3 or 4 different parks to do the same thing. And they have clues to kind of figure out, I guess, to kind of showcase the areas or the park amenities that it does have. Also, a couple of things that's going on in athletics. Well, not just athletics, but the Malden Cleanup Day is May 13th. We'll meet 9 o'clock here at the Sports Center, and then we'll kind of do our normal trail walk around Butler to Horn to back up Miller Road and back to the Sports Center. But we'll do that. That's annually. We've done that for about 3 years now. It's also a girls lacrosse play date at Sunset. Flag football championship that's also at Sunset Park as well on the 13th. Baseball championships will be May 18th at Sunset. And then on June 2nd through the 4th, we'll host the Golden Strip baseball and softball tournament. And that's pretty much everybody in the Golden Strip area, Fountain, Simpsonville, and us, and also Greer participates in that as well. That's just one big thing that we get everybody together for. June 8th through the 11th, well, the girls' 8s and 10U team will participate in the SCAP softball tournament in 96, South Carolina. June 10th and 11th, we'll host the flag football state championships games here at Sunset Park as well. June 17th to 18th, we'll have a wheelchair softball tournament for the Malden Marlins. They kind of get together and have a tournament, and we'll have some surrounding areas come around to play as well. June 19th to 22nd, out of the park baseball camp, we'll actually have a camp at Sunset Park as well. At Sports Center, right now we have a fitness challenge going on. This is going the distance. It's from now, started from April 24th to June the 3rd. Want to report that we also hired Renee Olson as a Sports Center coordinator, and she's done a great job for us. And we're still interviewing for the building coordinator position. Once we get that filled, we should be fully staffed, full-time staff members. That's all I got. And I let Greg talk about the senior center. So,
Manny, any questions?
Willie, I just want to know, how'd you draw the short straw on getting here tonight? What'd you do to Bart?
Flag football did Bart, so that's what he was at. Yeah. Anybody got any questions? Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you so much, Willie, for coming.
Greg Beeman come up and he's going to speak on
Greg, I appreciate you coming out. Again, didn't expect to be a late night for you.
It's okay.
But
It's all right. Not a problem.
I wanted to hear about the senior center. I haven't heard about it in a
okay.
while, so I
Yep.
wanted to get an opportunity to learn about all the great things you're doing.
Yeah, we have, we offer an awful lot. Mr. Duncan, if you'll go to the next slide. So, of course, our exercise classes, we have 3 cardio classes a week, 2 Tai Chi classes a week, 3 yoga, 1 chair yoga. They throw cornhole twice a week. They shoot basketball once a week. We have 4 line dancing classes, and they play pickleball 3 times a week. So it is a full schedule in the gym down there. And if you would go to the next slide, thank you. Of course, that's a picture. I had to get a picture of the cardio class. That's one of our bigger classes. They're averaging probably between 65, 75. They have had up to about 80, 81 in there on a morning. So that's a pretty popular class. It's continuing to grow. So if y'all know any ways that we can stretch the gym, let me know, because we're getting close to running out of space on a good day. With the next one. Of course, in the fitness room, we're usually averaging maybe 10 to 15 a day that use the little fitness room. I do have one piece of equipment they fight over. It's a recumbent bike, and we only have one. It would be nice in the future to get another one if we could, at least. With that age group, you have a lot of them that have hip issues, knee issues, issues with their feet. They've had replacements. They still need to do some kind of exercise. They can't take the pounding of the treadmill and stuff. So the recumbent bikes are always a good choice for them. But we're limited to one down there at the moment. If you could go to the next slide. The games, we do have game time group. They pick whatever game they want to play. They can play ping pong, beginning mahjong, dominoes, Rumikube, chess, cribbage, bingo, which is always a big group because they can win junk food. And if I don't have certain things, they let me know about it. So they also play bunco, and they can shoot pool. The pool table does get used quite a bit. I don't think it's ever been refelted. That would be a nice kind of on the wish list at some point to maybe do that for them. You can go to the next one. Of course, the cards, we have canasta, pinochle bridge, hand and foot, phase 10, poker, samba. That is not the dance. That is a card game. I did not know that. I was expecting to have another dance teacher that I was going to have to talk with and everything, but that is a card game. We'll go to the next one. Other activities, we have a jam time group. They come in, they bring their guitars and bass and play and sing. We go on field trips, of course. There's a ukulele group. We do host concerts. Of course, endless number of seminars and workshops that I schedule. There's a knitting group, Bible study group. We have a couple of charity groups, Cards for Kindness and the Helping Hands groups. There's a social book club. There's an art group, a yoga book club. We started a camera club. That's been pretty popular. And then, of course, holiday lunches and certain other special events that we come up with. Okay. Of course, the charities, we take eyeglasses for the Lions Club. We do take stuff for the Humane Society that we take and drop off. The Period Project as well. A lot of people don't know what that is, but that is feminine products. And what we do is every about 5, maybe 6 months, just depends on how much product gets donated. I'll reach out to that organization or they'll get in touch with me and we'll schedule what is called a packing party. So we'll take gallon Ziploc bags and depend on if it's for an adult female or a school-age girl, that determines what goes into the pack. The last time that we had a packing party, they packed almost 700 packs in 2 hours, and those get donated to the shelters and the schools. We do also take donations for the Upstate Backpack Ministry and the Messiah Lutheran Food Bank. Of course, this is a graph of our numbers over the last few years. As you can see, it's steadily been increasing. Last year, we finished with a little over 34,000. This year, we're projected will be above that. So we basically, when I first got there, it was about 437 seniors a week. We've been consistently averaging over 700 a week here lately. There's been a few months that we've hit 900. So I had 5 new people come in today. It's every week I've got brand new people moving into the area from out of state and other areas, along with all the seniors that I have that don't even live in Malden. I've got a lady that comes from Greenwood, Easley, Piedmont, Taylor's, Greer, everywhere, because of the amount of activities and things that we are able to offer. So we're pretty lucky to be able to offer what we offer, because there's a lot of places that don't do nowhere near the fraction of what we do for seniors. That's about it.
Very good. Mr. Matney, any questions?
Just a couple of quick things. And number one, thank you. In looking at some of the examples that you had, you talked about the pool table needing to be refelted. You talked about needing a new recumbent bike. The cards look like they may have seen their better days. Have those budget requests been made to BART, or have there been any discussions like for the exercise equipment to rotate out some of the equipment at the sports center that may be toward the end of its useful life for a facility like that, and then move over to the seniors?
Well, I've thought about that. The only thing is, something that's at the end of its life makes me a little nervous. With that age group, they're prone for accidents, and putting them on something that's at the end of its life makes me a little nervous.
I only ask because, it's something that is at the end of its useful life for the sports center, that's getting a lot more hard and fast use than it would be for the seniors who aren't going to be putting the same type of pressure and intensity on that equipment.
I agree with you.
Several more years out of it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Yeah.
Willie got something to say.
Just want to fill in for some of that. The recumbent bike and refelting of the pool tables have actually been put in the GCRA grant application. So once we get that money next fiscal year, we should get those taken care of.
Can you get the man some poker cards? I mean, did you see those things?
Poker cards? Yeah, we have with GCRA grants.
Not that poker gets played and gambling occurs over there.
We purchased numerous, I say, games and cards and shufflers for the seniors. We should have got a new pitcher.
Chief wasn't even paying attention to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about the concert and the field trips.
So the field trips, of course, depending on the time of the year, we usually keep them at day trips. A lot of them can't drive really well at night. So with that being said, we can only get so far away from the center to keep it in a day trip so that we get time back in a timely manner that they can get home while it's still light out. But we do go to Biltmore Estates. I've taken them up to the Cove. We go on little shopping excursions. We've gone to Happy Cow Creamery and done a tour. The history museums, we've done history tours downtown. We've gone to the Riverbank Zoo in Columbia. We've done the art museum in Columbia, a Good Meal Historic Site. I mean, the list goes on and on. We're getting ready to go to Greenville Drive game. We go to the Apple Festival in Hendersonville. So it's there. We always have somewhere that we're planning to go. You know, of course, they're always hitting me up about these really big trips that we'd have to fly to and everything. So we've kind of gotten around that, and I've gotten with a travel company, and they are going to do a trip with them out to the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
and the travel company will handle everything. But I've got, a good number that they love taking those overnight trips. They used to do that in the past, and because of COVID, we got away from it and just hadn't gotten back to doing it. And we felt like this would be a good way to get back to doing it.
And the ukulele concerts?
No, but those ladies are actually really good, by the way. You'd be surprised what you would recognize.
You ready for the cultural center stage yet?
I don't know, but I can ask them. They'll be in Wednesday.
Thank y'all so much for both of you for everything that you guys do for recreation. I appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you for having us.
All right. There is no unfinished business. There's no new business. Second, public comment. I'm getting a thumbs up that there is none. Committee concerns. I get the look that there is none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:48.
All right. I am so pleased that Ms. Joanne is here to hear the updates from Public Safety Committee tonight. She's the only one left standing besides the mayor. I'll call to order our sixth committee meeting, Public Safety, at 8:49. All members of committee are present, as well as our chiefs and our clerk of court. Do we have any public comment? I didn't mean clerk of court. I mean our judge. Sorry. No public comment. Next item is reading and approval of the minutes from March the 6th.
Make a motion that we approve as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Allgood. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any changes? Discussions here? None. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from March the 6th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. So tonight we have reports from our city officers. Mr. Duncan and I thought it'd be a good idea to have Chief McHone come up and give us an update on our new fire department, which due to an accident on I-85 this morning, I was detoured via Conestee. So I got a good fresh look this morning of those nice bays on Butler.
Good evening, committee members. We actually had a meeting on April 20th with the general contractor and the architects, and what they're looking at work to be performed in the next 30 days is the main power to the building, start up the HVAC units. Ceiling grids will be completed. Interior lights will start being installed. Painting will be ongoing. Measuring for cabinets next week. Install to start around May 22nd for the cabinets. Tile will be completed. Start setting out plumbing fixtures and soffits, gutters, and downspouts will be completed also. They will start prepping for the truck bays, so they'll be pouring the concrete into bays. Sidewalks will be completed, and we'll be installing the flagpole bases. Landscape is ongoing. They've actually already started doing some of the sod work and all that grading, putting plants and stuff out there already. And actually, they will be removing the construction trailers within the next 30 days, so that we'll be having our meetings now at our headquarters.
Really? Wow.
So they're moving on pretty good. They're still projecting around the 1st of September, but they're looking at gain, depending on the weather, hoping because now everything's inside, that they can move forward a whole lot faster and catch up some of that time. It's actually
By the end of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. And y'all should be getting some pictures in the weekly report this week. But it's hard to get in there now because everybody is inside.
No, nobody over there across the street's excited about this.
Oh yes, they actually go through and look at it too. So
Good, good. Good. Any questions about the fire department, the new fire station? All right. Get your
I do
budget
want to
ready.
update you on one of the budget line items is in our maintenance repair. We will be having a major repair. It just came up when our motors went out on our frontline engines from 46 or Miller Road Station. So it is actually going to have an overhaul. I just want to let y'all be aware of that.
You let Holly know.
Oh, yes. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Judge Dorado, come on up for your budget review.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members, and Ms. King, no need to apologize. We're both hats. So.
I know you do. I was talking about Cindy earlier, so I got a little confused at 9 o'clock tonight.
So as far as the budget line items, all our line items look good. The only one that we're a little over on is our court interpreter. That's because court administration had raised the minimum for the billable hours for that, but we have adjusted that for next year for the budget since we were aware for that. As far as things going on, I think Mr. Duncan hit a couple things in our weekly newsletters, but I just wanted to elaborate a little bit. So we did extend the bond accepting hours in judicial. We were accepting bonds from 9 to 12 Monday through Friday, and then 9 to 11, and then 3 to 4 on weekends and holidays. So during the week, we extended from 9 to 3, and that's in hopes to reduce some of our billable inmate hours that we're getting charged for. So by allowing the bondsmen to not have to wait that potential extra day and then save the billable hours. So, and they love it. They've been real happy about that. This week we start our twice a week court. So instead of every Wednesday, we'll be holding court Tuesdays and Thursdays through the end of 2023 to try to catch up. Our online payment web page is in the development stages. So we were in the preliminary talks with that, and we're set to go live maybe mid-June. I have met with the public defender. We keep just kind of going over the different aspects of the shared service agreement that we're looking to do with Bill County, with different municipalities. Looks like we're real close to getting that, so I'm hoping to have that on the committee agenda for next month, with hopefully a July 1st to go in line with fiscal year. And also, I know Mark's not here, but I just want to let everybody know that he officially is Judge Putnam.
Oh man, I wish I'd known that earlier.
So I don't know if that's good or bad. Good for me. I've probably called on him a bunch already.
That's awesome.
So he's all set. Did you have any other questions?
Again, I just want to thank you for your expertise that you've brought to our city, the way you work with our police department. It's just been a true pleasure watching your department grow and doing a great job. Thank you. You do. Great staff.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And all the different departments.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. What's left of it? Chief Miller.
Ms. King, Mr. Creighton, Mr. Allgood. I'm just going to give you, or the budget we're good on the budget. I was just going to give you some updates on some of the things that are going on in the police department. For the first quarter, our community relations officers, they have attended 56 community events. Also, Corporal Sefcak's been deploying Margot on a constant basis, and one in particular on March the 8th, there was a collision with 5 children involved that were passengers, and Margot's presence was vital in calming the children, which allowed the fire and EMS to do their job efficiently. Also, Sergeant Madden is in charge of our Courage program, which is civilian reaction to, I just forgot it. Civilian reaction to active shooter events. Between June the 22nd and of last year, or June of 2022 and April 23, he's conducted 13 classes, which would be like with Malden Methodist. He did that with the daycare. He also did it with businesses and stuff. So with those 13 classes, he's had 215 attendees that went through the class successfully. Also, we're going to be having Coffee with a Cop. It's hosted by Big Apple Donuts. It's going to be on May the 12th, between 7:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. We just had, as you saw on Facebook, and some attended, we had promotions for captains, lieutenants, and sergeants. Also, we're just finishing up the corporal promotions. So I had a little issue last week, so I didn't get to make those promotions. So I'll be doing those next week. And that should take care of everything since council approved those extra ranks for us. I'll be going to the Chiefs Workshop in Columbia. As a matter of fact, after this meeting's over with, I'll be heading down there. So I'll be down here till Thursday. Captain Hodre will be in charge. But if y'all need to get into contact with me, you can contact me by email or cell phone. And we just had some more patrol cars roll out from Spartanburg.
Oh, good.
We're getting ready to do the RFQ for the cars for the next year. That's all I got.
Questions? I failed to mention in Mr. Cralen's committee to Mr. Fleeman, but can't say thank you enough with the professionalism of the police department, fire department, the public works fellows at the Jazz Festival on Saturday. I mean, their presence were very prominent and known, and I mean, the PW guys, they were rocking it. They were awesome. I mean, y'all were too, but they were just, when you see them back and forth with trash cans, you notice them a little bit more. But yeah, so again, thank y'all for organizing that and having a presence. We notice and appreciate. All right. Thank you so much. Be safe. All right. We have no unfinished business, no new business. Public comment. Joanne says no, not right now. Committee concerns. Adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned at 8:59. Thank y'all.